All right. So just so I don't pick up background noise from the offices of those who are connected, I'm going to mute everybody. I know there's only 2 of you on the webinar right now, but I'm going to unmute occasionally, just in case somebody has questions. Oh, hi, Karen. I was just going over with the other 2 attendees where the chat window is for the meeting software, and I'll send out another message that you can see it. And just letting them know that I'm going to mute everybody just to cut down on background noise. And again, I apologize for background noise on my end. There's construction going on outside my office. So if something's not clear, simply ping me through the chat message if you can't hear me. And I think there's also a raise hand button on your side of the meeting software. So just let me know if all you can hear is jackhammers and I don't come through clearly. Okay. So what I'm going to be going over today is the revised estimated revenues process. And for those who I haven't spoken with in the past, my name is Justin Lowe, and I'm the Director of Operations at Axiomatic. I know that a couple of you have probably spoken to me for technical support. So I'm going to give you a quick overview of the tax rate setting process. That way, those of you who are new to this process kind of know where you are. I know that a lot of people have changed positions recently, and we have a lot of new users in the system. So the process typically starts with the drafting of your warrant articles, or if you're a city or county, your resolutions. With those drafted warrants, you move forward, and that becomes the proposed budget. This is the MS 636, 737, or 6C, the 26 or 27 for schools. And out of this proposed budget, the system aggregates your proposed appropriations and your initial estimated revenues. All of this gets stored in the database. So what you're seeing on your end is the interface where you enter the values, and you're seeing the reports that come out of the system. So after your annual meeting, after you go through and you answer the annual meeting questions, those proposed appropriations are what become the voted appropriations, which is the MS 232 or the MS 22 report. Your estimated revenues become the MS 434 and the MS 24. This is the revised estimated revenues report. And prior to the submission of this, you have the opportunity to make revisions and changes as necessary. The tax rate itself is calculated from the difference between your voted appropriations and your revised estimated revenues. We incorporate the MS1 or 1V, the valuation report, into this, and from that, you get your tax rates. In the following year, your actual expenditures and actual revenues from this cycle get reported on the MS 535 or the MS 25 for schools. So what we're going to cover today is just the revised estimated revenues process. It's relatively straightforward, but we want to make sure that everybody understands it. Now, to give you an idea of where you are in the training cycle, we have sessions that are ongoing throughout the entire year that coincide with the different phases of the tax rate setting process. You have your budget training sessions in the winter and up until the early spring. We get into appropriations, which is your annual meeting to produce your MS 232. Those trainings typically run through May. And where we are right now is we're in the estimated revenues trainings, and you're in one of the last sessions. The final session is August 31st, and after that, we're straight into tax rate settings. So what I'm going to do real quick is unmute everybody and see if anybody has any questions. I know there's only 3 of you on the webinar today. We were expecting 2 more, but they may not be able to join in time. So again, I'll be posting a recording of this on YouTube, and I'll send out a link to everybody. Okay, so the revised estimated revenues webinar itself is going to go over a couple things. The first is the application interface, the process for updating revenues, a little bit about entering fund balances and overlays and the resulting calculation, the revised estimated revenues submission process, viewing your draft and final forms. So these are your reports in the system. And I'll touch on the DRA approval process, which gives you the MS 434R. And of course, I'm going to go through and demo all this on our test server. So to get to the interface itself, there's two ways. If you're on your Home tab, you can either click Continue next to Financial Home, or at any point in time from anywhere in the application, you can click on the Financial tab. This is going to take you to the Financial tab landing page. Depending on where you are in the tax rate setting process and your type of entity, you may see several different options here. In this case, to get to the revised estimated revenues interface, you simply click Continue next to Revenue Review. If your 434 is in progress, meaning you've already clicked Continue or entered some values, you'll have a button here that says View Estimated Revenues Report. After your 434 is finalized, you can view the final report through this page as well. And once the DRA has completed their review and produced the 434R, you'll see a third button here, which will allow you to view their report. And I'll show you all of that in the live application. So the estimated revenues interface has the same account code table, the same functionality, the same search features as you've seen throughout the rest of the program. It has the blue recalculate button that you may be familiar with from when you were drafting your warrant articles, so that as you're going through and you're entering values, you can click recalculate to save your progress and recalculate the totals. We have 3 columns here, and in this particular screenshot, there's no values, but your WA column would be the warrant article number from your proposed budget that had your initial revenue estimate. You have a column for your revised estimated revenues, where you'll enter your new numbers, and you have a notes and source field. Now, this notes and source field will require entries anytime that you have sources of revenue that fall outside the account codes you used in the warrant articles for your proposed budget, because the Department of Revenue wants to know where these revenues are coming from and why they weren't part of the proposed budget to begin with. At the bottom of this page, you have your unassigned fund balance, emergency appropriations, your amount voted from fund balance, the amount to reduce taxes, your requested overlay, and those numbers. Some of these fields are calculated. For instance, the fund balance retained field is calculated once you enter numbers and you click and recalculate or save and refresh. It'll actually recalculate that total based on the fund balances that you've entered. Not many people have emergency appropriations, but if you do have them, this is where that amount would be entered and saved. So again, same breakdown as most of the rest of the application. Your account codes table with the revenue account codes and the account code categories. Your totals at the bottom of the page. And finally, the 3 buttons at the bottom simply let you save your progress and jump back to your Financial Home tab, or move forward to submit your estimated revenue revisions to the DRA. So a little bit about that fund balance and overlay section. This is where you would typically, if you have a unassigned fund balance that was reported elsewhere in the system, this is where it would pull it in for you. But you can make changes to pretty much any field in this table. The requested overlay is just a approximate value. It's the amount that's going to be used to set your preliminary tax rate. And the emergency appropriations line really only applies to non-school entities. They don't have this line. It's not something that they can take advantage of or a number that they're required to enter. So here's just a quick example of what it would look like if you went through and filled it out and recalculated the totals. At any point during the tax rate setting process up until when you receive your final tax rate, you can change the requested overlay amount. So again, when you're submitting the 434, this is just the initial value. So you're going to go through a couple steps before the final tax rate where you can change that value if needed. Finally, those three buttons at the bottom. Any point in time, you can save and refresh the totals. You can save and go home if you need to log out of the system. And that submit for review button is just like the submission buttons you've seen in other interfaces. That's where it actually finalizes your 434 report and fires this off to the Department of Revenue. And again, I know I mentioned this earlier, but your draft 434, meaning your non-finalized 434, can be viewed at any time by clicking that View Estimated Revenues report. It's the same button after you complete your submission to view the final report. The only difference between the two is that prior to finalizing and submitting, the report will have watermarks on it. So it's going to clearly indicate that it is a draft form and that you haven't completed the process yet. So I'm going to actually, I'm going to show you the test server and run through all the steps in the live application. But before I do that, I'm just going to unmute everybody. I don't know if, if anybody has any questions. Again, I know this is a relatively quick presentation. There's only a few of us today. And again, you can send me a chat message if you need to at any point in time. Okay, I'm going to jump over to the application now. So this is on our test server. So the things that you're going to see here aren't necessarily live data. This is just the server we used for our webinars and things of that nature. So it's going to be real towns, but the numbers may not necessarily be real. So I'm going to log in here, and I have a couple towns that I've set up for demonstration purposes. So I'm going to jump to Clarksville real quick. So from my home page, I'm just going to click on either Continue next to Financial Home, or again on the Financial tab. You'll see here that the screenshots in the PowerPoint presentation didn't show the MS535 review button. When we took those screenshots, that feature wasn't enabled yet. And I'm going to go into my 434 review process here. So this is my revised estimated revenues section. And what you'll see here are warrant article numbers and current year revised estimated revenues that were pulled in from my proposed budget. So all of this is pre-populated. It shows the warrant article that these estimated revenues originally came in from. And again, these are all of the revenue amounts from the proposed budget itself. So here's where I would review my estimated revenues. I'd make changes as necessary. You know, you might have better knowledge what your yield taxes or your excavation taxes might be. And again, if we put in values that fall outside of the account codes we were using in the proposed budget, the DRA just requires that you enter some notes or indicate where the revenues are coming from, because they're going to be looking at all of that during their review process. I'll do a quick recalculate. And then down at the bottom is where, again, I would enter my unassigned fund balance and any emergency appropriations. And if we are pulling anything out of the fund balance to actually reduce the tax rate, this is where the DRA wants to see it reported. And then we'll just enter our requested overlay just for completion's sake. So the process is relatively straightforward. All you're doing here is entering your revised estimated revenues. There's nothing else that needs to be taken care of. So here, I'm just going to submit for review. I get a quick pop-up that asks me if I'm sure I want to submit the revenues. And that's all there is to it. Once you've done that, and you view your revised estimated revenues report, and it's going to take just a minute because this is a test server. This is the final report before the DRA actually completes their end of the review, and I'm going to show you what their report looks like as well. I'm just waiting for this reporting server to load. So this is what the final MS434 looks like. A lot of you have seen this in the past. You'll notice that it has no draft watermarks. Again, this is because it was finalized in the system. So if you're viewing your 434 and you see draft anywhere on it, all that's indicating is you have not yet submitted your revised estimated revenues. I'm going to jump over to another town on the test server, one that I know that we have a DRA approved 434. Okay, so these are the three buttons you would see on your financial tab once you've completed the submission process and the DRA has actually completed their review. So you'll have a separate button here that lets you view the DRA approved estimated revenues. So this is just the 434R report. If the DRA makes any changes, you'll see it in the change amount column, and you'll see your final revenue estimates on the right side. The only additional part of this report that's different from the regular 434 is if they enter notes for any of the adjustments. On the very last page of this report, you'll see a full explanation for any adjustments that they made. So just to go over what the DRA's review actually is, for those of you who have not been through the process in prior years, they're going to review your revised estimated revenue submissions. They compare it against previous year values and any values that they get from other state agencies. So these would be things like Meals and Rooms or the block grant. So they pull all this together and they take a look at your revenue estimates versus what they have on file. You may get some questions from your advisor, but typically these reviews, there's not a whole lot of feedback. Most people don't run into too many issues here. So the advisor will complete the review and you'll get that MS434R. Now, printing these reports is just the same as printing anything else from the system. You can't print directly from the browser. I know that we have one new person in here today, so I'll just show you what the process is for printing these reports. So if you're viewing the report in the system and you attempt to print from the browser, the layout will probably get screwed up. It may print multiple pages per sheet, or your browser security settings may prevent you from printing. The easiest way to print is to pull up the Export drop-down menu, which is this blue floppy disk icon at the top of the report. From here, you can export these reports out to a number of different file formats. If you need to enter preparers' names or anything on the cover page, I usually recommend people export to Word. But if you're just printing, PDF is pretty much the way to go. A PDF will preserve the layout of the report, the number formatting, and so on. Exporting these particular reports to Microsoft Excel doesn't usually work out too well because Excel doesn't know how to handle all of the formatting, the line breaks, the tables. But if you just need to pull numbers out and you want to copy and paste into financial software or your own spreadsheets, you can export to Excel from here. Again, if you're just printing, simply save it to PDF, open the PDF on your computer, and print from there. So everybody should be unmuted. I don't know if anybody has any questions before I just run through the financial review process quickly. So prior to the actual setting of the tax rate, there's a number of additional documents, and I know that many of you have provided these already, but this is just a quick reminder. After your 434 is in and they've produced the 434R for you, towns and villages will still need to submit the MS535. Towns will also need to get in the MS61, and schools will report their actuals on the MS25. Now, the MS25 isn't part of the application yet, so most schools are simply going to slap the 25 cover page on whatever scanned documents they get from their auditors or a financial firm and upload it to the portal. So all of these documents get uploaded to the same documents table on your home tab that you've seen in the past. And finally, I know the revised estimated revenues process is relatively simple and relatively quick, but if you need any assistance with anything, you can reach out to your municipal advisor. They're typically there for procedural questions. If you have technical questions, you can contact us. The DRA website is also a good resource. I know many of you have probably used it in the past. And we've also changed the help links on the application itself. So now, instead of help bringing up a PDF, clicking on the help page will bring you directly to our support portal. So from here, you can file new support tickets with us. You can check a ticket status if you have an open support ticket, or if you need to, you can call us directly, and you'll probably get either me or Ainsley on the phone. But here you'll also find all of our help documentation. So if you get stuck on any point in the process, chances are we either have a frequently asked question that deals with it, or we have a help article that will guide you through step by step. For instance, this is the revised estimated revenues help page, where we actually have a YouTube video that walks you through the process. And then for those of you who can't watch YouTube from work or don't have speakers, we also have screenshots and a step-by-step breakdown of everything that you need to do. So I don't know if anybody has any questions. Again, you can reach out to us through our support portal, directly through our phone number, or you can email me directly. I know that I've spoken to many of you in the past. My email address is justin@axiomnh.com. That's AXIOMNH.com. And if you file a support ticket, I get a notification immediately. So I have all the lines unmuted. I'm going to hang out for a couple minutes here. And if anybody has any questions that are specific to their town or their entity, just let me know. If you want to see anything, I know a couple people joined late. I can jump back to that part of the presentation. If not, I want to thank everybody for attending.